Man like Mark Sullivan, the warrior self. Stay tuned for the thrilling episode. Woo!
A positive mental attitude can clear away all obstacles which stand between you and your major purpose in life.
This is the Snowboard Project featuring Mark Sullivan and the Bead. The Snowboard Project. The Snowboard Project. The Snowboard Project.
Then we have a bunch. Okay. Welcome back to the Snowboard Project. I'm Mark Sullivan.
And I am the Beeve, and
we have a special guest today.
Oh, so special.
They're all special.
They're all
this
special.
This one is actually really, really, really special.
Okay, I've heard this name, and maybe it's just through conversations with you, but who is Mike Chantry?
Mike Chantry is probably the most OG snowboarder living in the world today, besides maybe like Jake Burton. But I would put him like as far as like contribution to the sport, close to that level anyway.
Wow, no way. I mean, that's some huge accolades coming from you, Mark. Just how much.
Well, he's the guy who introduced Tom Sims to Tahoe.
Okay.
He's the guy who introduced Terry Kidwell and Shaun Palmer to snowboarding.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
Did you guys cover that in the interview?
A little bit. We talk just a lot about the old days. He also helped organize the first halfpipe event in the sport.
Okay.
And he had like he had a halfpipe in Tahoe called the Mile High Ramp.
Okay.
And so all the skaters would come and stay at his house. And so then he would introduce them to basically like snowboarding in the wintertime. And then Tom Sims was like basically living on his couch all winter. And like, yeah, I mean, this guy is like truly legendary.
Okay. Just imagine if he wasn't in Tahoe, would we have those guys to look up to?
That's the question, right? Without him, he's like one of those missing links or something, right? Like without him, would have it just evolved in a different way and we'd all be wearing spandex today and bashing gates.
So he's the human ape, basically.
He would be in that drawing where it goes from like ape to human, kind of standing up gradually.
Okay.
He'd be like in the second step.
Where
it's like,
It's like, wow, that ape has like a nice nose. Oh, that's Mike. That's Chantry.
And also, by the way, he was like a judge of like World Cups of ISF events primarily, but he like judged the World Championships, helped organize the World Championships for a number of years. I mean, this guy is O to the G.
All right. Well, we should probably just roll into this, right?
Yeah, Mike Chantry. Okay, well, right now I'm joined by Mike Chantry. And Mike, why don't you say hello?
Hey, how are you doing?
Oh, man. Mike Chantry, I'll do your intro before the interview because I don't want to make you turn red. But let's just say that if you don't know or respect Mike Chantry, chances are you don't know a lot about the history of snowboarding.
Or skateboarding.
Or skateboarding, for that matter. I always grew up a snowboarder. I know that you came from a skateboarding background, and maybe the person, you were one of the people, for sure. You may be the person most responsible for the sport of skateboarding and snowboarding kind of coming together as one. Instead of, like, say, ski racing or gates or something else. And so let's roll back the clock right now. Let's go back in time. When was the first time? Did you grow up in Tahoe? Were you from Tahoe?
No. I kind of bounced around all over the states when I was growing up, and then finally settled down in the Bay Area. And then I eventually went to work for AT&T. Lived in Tahoe for 30 years. Started skateboarding there again, doing mountain runs, which were hella fun. You know, full speed power slides around the curves on some of these, hairpins.
Yeah, but go ahead.
The first time I snowboarded was in 1965.
What? Okay, do tell.
I took an old 9.6 GS surfboard, cut it down, reshaped the skeg, kind of reshaped it a little bit more, and we used to take it up to Echo Summit, up on 50. Camp Sacramento. Well, there's a bunch of trees there now. You can't do that run anymore because there's too many trees in the way now. It's just like a thick forest up there. But then the trees were like minuscule, and they were buried under about 15, 20 feet of snow. So we just put tar and gravel on top of the board and wrapped plastic around our legs to stay dry. And we just did runs with no leashes. You know, if the board got away, it was a nice hike down, and half the time it would gap the road, and you'd have to go across to the other side of the road and get your board back, and then start hiking back up again. But,
so how much riding did you do back then? I mean, were you going all the time, or was it an occasional thing?
Yeah, it was just kind of occasional, you know, maybe a couple times that winter, and then I just kind of put the board away and just never thought about it again, you know, until I ran into Tom, you know, in the 70s. The mid-70s, you know, with his skateboarding stuff. You know, because I was up in Tahoe, and then we had a couple of quarter pipes and some early stage, I'd say stage minus 1.2 half pipes with no flat. It was just like a big U-jump.
Right.
That was hella fast. You know, so Tom would send some of his team members up to do photo shoots and stay at the house, and kind of used my house as Sim's headquarters.
Cool.
In the beginning, you know, before we started snowboarding. And then he brought this in the wintertime. He flew up and he goes, "Check this out." And I went, "Oh, cool." It was like one of the earliest, like 78 snowboards. And then, so I started riding that with him. And I've still got that board somewhere in here. It's it's the prototype when he was crossing over from the bungees to the white plastic two-piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, these were made out of metal. They were the toe clips of cross-country skis, reversed to heel clips.
Yeah.
And then he drilled them all out and put straps on it, and then he made a custom toe piece. So it was like the predecessor. This is like the missing link between the bungees and the two-piece white ones.
Right.
So, you know, there's only one model, and this was his show board. He had a case for it, and he took it around the world to all the ski shows.
Wow.
And showed it off and go, "This is a snowboard." And the metal parts were gold-plated, but they kind of wore away from riding, you know, back in the day.
Yeah.
Still a little bit of gold plate left on you know, parts of the heel cups on that, but the fins were gold plated. Those are pretty much worn away. So I think the chrome is starting to wear off on them too.
What's the most amount of money you've ever been offered for that board?
It's insured right now for $50,000.
Worth it easily. I mean, that's like, I mean,
it's a one of a kind. It was Tom's personal board. You know, he gave it to me to learn on. And then he just totally forgot about it. So I've just been sitting there with it. It was up in the attic, and then I moved down here to Placerville and started going through all my boards. And I was like, oh, okay, so I got about 40 Sims boards here now. So
yeah, I've seen some photos you've posted of just like a pretty incredible collection, because a lot of the boards you have are ones that like really money couldn't buy. Like they were like prototypes, or they were like team boards, or basically like kind of unique stuff that you have in your collection that really is like one off, two off, something like that.
Yeah, the board that I was teaching on when I started teaching in '82 at SOTA was the second one he did with the split black P-Tex, the two-piece, and then it had the screwed-in edges.
So that was the first metal edges, basically, on the Sims boards? Yeah.
Yeah, it was the Swallowtail. That was right before he went into production, and he was just giving the team guys the edge boards for the races and to ride at contests and stuff.
Yeah, it's funny, Elizabeth, if you were on a team, like if you were a sponsored athlete back then, it's like almost like you had an unfair advantage because you were riding next year's board, or you were riding stuff that was like light years ahead of the people who were riding last year's board, basically. Because every year it seems like in those early days that like the progression in technology was so rapid that like Last year's board was obsolete when the new one came out.
Oh yeah, yeah. A lot of times he'd do like a flip flop, and we'd have like 3 different models. You know, it's like, well, this is next year's, this is the year after proto, and this is the 3rd year proto. You know, so it's just, I'd come home from work, and I was just like, had no clue, and there'd be like a dozen boxes on my front porch, you know, board boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And then I go, well, I guess Tom's coming up. This would be like Thursday. So I'd call him like, so when do you want me to pick you up at the airport?
Yeah.
He goes, oh yeah, I forgot to call you and tell you. Like, well, I got a warehouse full of boards now and boxes and all this other crap that you sent up for, you know, because he'd send all that stuff up, then he'd come up for the weekend, and we'd R&D the boards over the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then we'd figure out, you know, is this a good shape? Is this a good length? Or, you know, how's the binding, you know, thing on this? You know, and then he'd fly back down and go back into the, you know, in the factory and start tinkering again. Mm-hmm. You know, so a few weeks later, I'd get another pile of boards. You know, so this is like, wow.
Right, and you know, back then, I think, you know, my understanding is that like you introduced guys like Shaun Palmer, Terry Kidwell, maybe Alan Armbrister, a lot of guys to the sport.
Yeah, I got them signed up. You know, I was kind of like a talent agent back then. You know, I just watched these guys ride, and I go,
Right. You had a ramp in your backyard, didn't you? Have like a skate ramp in your backyard, yeah, so you were kind of like the blue like bug zapper for people into this kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah. I had the Mile High ramp in '82. It was like August. It only lasted in the backyard from August until Thanksgiving weekend. I had to have Cab and the San Jose crew come up and help me dismantle the ramp because of a lawsuit.
Oh, that killed a lot of ramps back then.
Yeah, that was Corey's mom sued my landlady because he broke his shoulder because he was drunk skating.
Right. And all the bros were cool with it, but then as soon as someone breaks a limb, mom calls.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, but he could have said he broke it in the street and sued the county or whatever, you know.
Right.
He said, oh, I broke it on Mike's ramp, blah, 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 you know. So instantly I'm getting a call from my landlady going, what's up? What's this thing in your backyard now? I go, well, okay, you know. So she goes, I want it down, you know, ASAP. Mm-hmm. So then I caught Corey riding my ramp while I was at work. He cut the chain and was skating my ramp. My neighbor took pictures of it and noted the dates on that. So I called the lawyer and told her to get a hold of Corey's mom and tell him that I'm going to sue him and have him arrested for trespassing and property damage. Mm-hmm. So lawsuit dropped instantly. You know, the lawsuit went away really quick. So I guess she didn't want Junior to go to jail for, you know, a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, but the ramp was gone. The bottom line was the ramp got taken down.
We took it all apart, you know, and carefully stacked, you know, the sections up, covered them up in P-Tex for the snow. You know, they were buried under about 12 feet of snow for the winter.
You put them under P-Tex?
Or not P-Tex, but
tarps or something.
Black, you know, the Visqueen.
Yep, yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
I was like, wow, you got a lot of P-Tex laying around.
My brain's still a little fuzzy from all the chemo I was going through during the spring. But anyway, the next June I started scouting out sites to where we could move the ramp to, and then I found the final resting place was the end of a court. No houses around. We could make all the noise we wanted, you know, just raise a ruckus. And it was like right across the field from the local 7-Eleven, so everybody could, you know, there was actually a triple wide path over to 7-Eleven after I rebuilt it. Mm-hmm. Everybody would just camp out or come skate, and then they'd run over to the 7-Eleven, get a big 32-ouncer, you know, or food or whatever. And she kept yelling, the gal that owned the place, she kept yelling at me that the skateboarders were ripping her off. And I go, well, what's your profit from the last few months since I had the ramp over there? Oh, well, that, you know, blah, blah, blah. I go, you guys are making bank off my ramp.
Yeah.
All the people come and skate it, you know, and they get hungry and thirsty and everything. They look over, 7-Eleven, you know, when they're right over there.
Yep. You were like a tourist attraction, your ramp was.
Oh, yeah. You know, I'd go in there and there'd be like motorhomes from Texas and Tennessee and, the back east after they saw photos in Thrasher of the ramp. They're like, oh, we got to go skate this thing.
Yep. And so was were Terry and Alan, all those guys skating back then?
Oh yeah, fully.
So
Alan actually helped me build the first ramp in my backyard.
Really?
Yeah, he was my handyman assistant.
So
cutting out templates and screwing and nailing and everything.
Wow, that's really cool. How old was Terry when you met him?
He was in his teens, late teens.
What were your first impressions of Terry Kidwell?
He was pretty cool. I was always interested in what was going on with the boards and everything else. And then in the beginning, him, Bob Klein, Alan, what was it? 5 or 6 others from the North Shore were riding the heck was it? From Utah?
Mm-hmm. Milovich?
Yeah, Milovich. Yeah, his winter sticks.
Yep.
They were riding those, and Alan just kept breaking them and sending them back, and he goes, oh, dude, this thing sucks, blah, 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 like that. So, he'd send him a new one, and finally he just cut him off because he was breaking so many of them.
Yeah.
But he had this signature move, backside disaster,
and
he broke so many of my old boards, my collectibles.
Yeah.
Right in front of the back binding, because he would land right there and crack it.
Yeah.
He'd crack the wood, and then, so I did some major repairs on a few of the boards, so they're pretty much back to riding ability again.
Yeah, those old Flatlam Sims, it's like those things were like a wood shop project, because they would like delam, or you would like crack them, and then you'd like get some epoxy and clamp it or whatever.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like there were like versus like the vertical wood cores, it's like once you really mess one of those up, there isn't really fixing it. But you could pretty much like repair one of those. I've seen crazy repair jobs on those things. People like cutting pieces out and putting new pieces in and stuff like that.
We had long nights sometimes with the clamps and the stuff in between days of contests.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, because I had a workshop up in my attic, with a workbench, and we'd wax and tune and and work on the boards and finagle with them, and trying to make them a little better. And that's where Tom and Terry created the first Kidwell.
Wow, were you there?
Yeah. They would be up in the attic for hours, sawing away, with a jigsaw or something like that, and reshaping, and then slicing layers out of the tail, and then getting it so it would turn up, because there was no molds back then for tails.
Right.
And just once we had the prototype done up in the attic, and then Tom took that, Terry rode it for a while and said, oh, this is awesome, so I'm like, oh, when are we going to get him? When are we going to get him? And, so he took that one back and then had a press made so he could make the Kidwells.
Mm-hmm.
And then about a month later, we got a couple of test boards. Terry rode those. I rode one. Alan had one.
What was like the first thought that went through your mind when these guys were like prototyping up a kicktail snowboard? Like, what were you thinking, like in your mind, because it was unproven?
All I could think of was, fakey tricks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or because you can't really do a wheelie with a swallowtail. Well, you can, but it'll snap the tail off.
Right.
But with the Kidwell, you can just sit back and rock that thing up and just ride the tail down the hill. It's like in the first movie.
Yeah, this is snowboarding. Totally.
Yeah. We were all doing that. There was a whole bunch of us just doing tail wheelies right behind Terry coming down the face up there.
Wow. Wow, that's so cool. What year was that when the first prototype of the first freestyle board was made?
That was in the fall and winter of 83, 84. No, 84.
So had you already had the Soda Springs contest?
No, 84 we were playing around with it, the design and everything, and Tom sent me a couple of drawings, he was thinking of, and then Terry would, doodle it a little bit, and so, Terry was my roommate back then too, so he was living at my house. Pretty much a lot of people lived at my house. Clone lived there for a while. Fawcett lived there for a while. Terry was there for like 2 years.
Wow. Man, those are some pretty. I mean, in hindsight, it was probably just like, oh, you didn't pay the phone bill, or whatever. I mean, maybe you didn't have a phone bill because you worked for the phone company, but it's like, he was just your roommate. Like, you didn't realize, like, really the importance and impact of what that time would have on the sport. Maybe.
Oh, yeah. Nah, I could kind of see it coming. It's just the way these guys were riding, and creating all these new tricks and, moves and then there was all the video games that we were playing,
Yeah. Video games? You mean like Pac-Man?
Oh, no, I mean like Mario and Zelda and everything else. And Terry and I'd be up. He'd play all night. And then I'd come home from work, and then I'd jump on there and see if I could get a little further on in the game. And then we actually set a record for the second level or the second version or the second world in Zelda, the second Zelda.
Yeah.
Because there was 2 versions. You finish the first one, and then it would flip over and give you the second one. And we finished the second one in 18 hours.
So you guys were cross training somehow.
Oh yeah, and especially like the Tony Hawk games and a lot of the snowboard games that were coming out, early ones. And then I worked with EA down in the Bay, which was the predecessor to the SSX games. Yep. Yeah.
So but like going back up probably a little bit further than these video games anyway. I mean, my understanding is that like you basically helped create. You were co-creator of the first halfpipe event ever in snowboarding.
Oh yeah.
That was at Soda Springs '83.
Yeah, Tom was in the cat directing the push up, and I was just following along with the shovel, trying to shape stuff out.
Yeah, paint that picture for us. Like paint a picture of like what it was like on contest morning, the first halfpipe contest ever. What was it like?
Awesome.
Was there a lot of people? I mean, how'd you get the word out? Was it like? I mean, I've seen pictures of it.
All the teams were there. From the East Coast, the Midwest, Colorado, the Northwest. The Baker crew was down here. The first year, Craig wasn't there. He was still up in Baker. He never made it down. He did make it in '84. As an amateur, and then in '85 I have the first pro runs he ever did.
Really?
At the Soda Pipe.
Cool.
And that's when he turned pro with Tom. So
who won that first contest and describe their run, the winning run of the first contest ever?
That was there was 2 brothers. I'm trying to remember their names. It's like I know. Oh, Hargraves. There was 2 brothers. The one that won, he was the first world champion in the pipe. His run was just a hair better than Terry's. Otherwise, Terry would have won. I think Terry sketched out a little bit like that. Nobody was shooting video. I have no video of the first one.
How many 1080s did they do in those runs?
Oh, yeah.
So what were the tricks that were going down at the time? Because if it's the first halfpipe,
it's just backside air. It's backside air. Do a nose roll. Do a slash. Kind of slashes. And then you had Achenbach from Canada who was down there. He actually almost pulled a 540 or McTwist.
Really?
He was playing around with it, but he kept landing on his head. So we're just like, minus points.
Yeah.
He crashed.
Wow.
But he didn't care. He was having fun. Everybody was having fun.
Happy holidays, guys. Just want to give a shout out to everybody that has supported us up to this point. We are 50 plus episodes into this project, and it has been a great experiment in snowboarding and snowboarding media, and it has been fun. It has been a great time, hasn't it, Mark?
Yeah, I've had a lot of fun doing the interviews, doing our weekly Real Talk episodes. It has been also a learning experience. It's not only been fun, but it's also been a learning experience.
It's been a huge learning experience for myself as well, just learning about snowboarding, learning just about the industry that I'm directly a part of in an unfiltered kind of way, I guess.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So who are some of the people that have been helping us out thus far?
Okay, so we have guys like Jeff Lavin, Kyle Clancy, Trevor Graves, Kyle Phillips, Jay Quinn's one of our supporters.
Right.
We have all sorts of people supporting us right now at the Snowboard Project. And so they go to patreon.com/the Snowboard Project, donate $2, $5, $10 or more a month, and just help this independent voice in snowboarding media survive.
So if you're interested in supporting us, and if you're interested in buying us a beer, buying us a couple beers, or really just helping us out, please go to patreon.com/the Snowboard Project and help us keep bringing you an independent voice in snowboarding media.
Well, back then it wasn't like lucrative, and so if like, okay, first place, okay, you get like $200 or something. So it's like, I'll buy a round of beers, right, or something like that.
Yeah, that was beer money. It was just like the bar bill, for a couple rounds, and it was. The heck else? Oh.
So who else was in that contest? Like, what were like the things that really stick out in your mind about that very first World Championship?
Okay, Cab was there, Billy Ruff was there, Lance Mountain was there.
Whoa.
They were all staying at my house, but they came up with Steve Cathey from GNS, and they were staying at his house in Incline. And then I heard a knock on the door this one night, before the contest. I opened the door, and there's like all three of them with all their board bags and everything else. They're like, "We took a cab over. Can we stay here? You got all the video games and the videos and all kinds of cool stuff." And it's like, like Steve Cathey has nothing in his condo except a TV. It's like, okay, yeah, sure, you can stay here.
Wow.
And a couple hours later, I got a call from Steve. You see my guys? I'm like, yeah, they're right here. They're camping out. They're fine here. It's just, I got plenty of room. So they spent the whole weekend and then competing. And then I actually showed them a frontside judo.
Mm-hmm.
One foot, instead of the back foot out, I had the front foot out.
Mm-hmm.
On that, and I was doing that on this one wall, and Cab was like watching me, and then he finally started doing them, and a couple other things. I was like, oh, okay, yeah. It's like, you guys go play.
Yeah. So were you competing as well as organizing?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was ranked like 18th in the world or something like that after that contest.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember, I would say my first time that I didn't actually meet you because I was actually just like probably a 14-year-old Grom, but it was probably at like the 88 U.S. Open, and I just remember you were wearing like this Letterman's jacket from like the 86 Worlds or something like that. It was like 88 Worlds, right? So,
yeah. And
I was just like, oh, that's who's that? And then I was like, oh, Mike Chantry, I've seen that name. And, I just like, I kind of like watched you, right? I was too shy to go introduce myself to anyone back then, but I was like really impressed that people had come. Like, I was from the East Coast, but like all these people had come from all over the world. And it's like, here are the best people. I was reading ISM back then, and like, look, here are all these people in the magazine. Everyone in the magazine actually was at that event,
Oh, yeah.
So
86 was like the worst world championships ever.
Why?
I think there was like 600 people showed up to compete, so they had to do a pre-qualifier.
This is Breckenridge, right? The Breckenridge Worlds, yeah.
Correct. Yeah. So they had to weed out the undesirables. It's like, okay, pay your money and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like the U.S. Open. Eventually, they had to do that later on.
Yep. No,
so,
my very first year snowboarding, I competed in the Open.
Yeah.
It's like, but I was a ski racer before, so I had enough skill anyway to pass, I guess. you know.
Yeah.
But man, it was so interesting back then because it was like every year it changed radically, and so you just didn't know what was going to come next, you know. And it was pretty exciting as a kid to like witness all that change and like see guys like Palmer in Vermont, you know. And then I got to know Palmer, and Palmer's quite a character. You introduced Palmer to snowboarding, didn't you?
Yeah.
How old was he when you met him?
14.
14. Was he full of the piss and vinegar that he's so known for?
He had the angst going strongly.
Yeah. So what did you think about that? Because you were holding down a job, you had a ramp, a house, you know, responsibility, and here's this kid who's like, out to take over the world. What did you make of that?
Yeah, just, we always got along. One thing that he never fucked with me at all. I mean, sorry about that. But
That's
anyway,
fine. You can say whatever you want.
He never messed with me, like he did other people.
Mm-hmm.
Just get under K's and yada, 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 like that. It's like, for so many weekends, he would be up at my house. He'd hitchhike up from South Tahoe, spend the weekend at my house so we could go boarding. And then he'd play the video games and watch the videos, and hang out and play quarters on the kitchen and get drunk.
Yeah.
So I was like, your grandma knows you're here, right? Yeah, she's cool. It's like, okay. But it's just like every time he would get in somebody's face or case or something like that, and I'd just kind of go, hey, hold off here. Now, let's just back off a little bit and think on this. Where's this coming from? So he'd just kind of look at me, and you can see the change come over his face and stuff, but...
I got a new title for you. You were snowboarding's original voice of reason.
Yeah.
Because you probably got these guys from getting themselves into a lot more trouble than they actually got into.
Except for Alan. Alan was a heartbreaker.
Yeah, let's talk about Alan for a minute because I don't think a lot of people know his story. And honestly, it's like, had things gone a little differently, snowboarding would have a different kind of list of people.
He would be a world champion. He rode better than Terry. We called him Gumby because he could get in more contorted positions on a board, upside down or sideways or whatever, than anybody else I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
Even the guys with the YOLO flips and all the mass, spins and everything else, Alan could pull some of that stuff, just off big jumps.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, wow, how can he get in that position? It's just like, it was like his body was double jointed.
Whoa. But then it came off the rails there pretty early, didn't it?
Yeah, he, when he went back east, I think that was the start of the end of the line, when Tom shipped him home on a bus from the Open.
Mm-hmm.
Because he almost burned the condo down.
How do you almost burn the condo down?
He was waxing his board, and the hot wax got on the carpet and caught fire.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So what he got off the team and then it went into a downward spiral?
Yeah, then he got pissed because stuff like that. Tom got on his case, so he just turned around and he threw his board through the window. Broke the window out. It's just Tom had to pay for all the repairs for that room.
Yeah, the budgets weren't very big back then in marketing budgets either.
Oh no, Tom just always had his checkbook ready, just in case. It was either Palmer or Allen or, and then, the one thing you never wanted to do was put Ranklet and Palmer in the same room.
Yeah.
Like at, what was it, Purgatory. Well, yeah, Purgatory.
88 Purgatory.
The 88 World Cup qualifier.
Yeah.
And those two guys were rooming. And Palmer's doing bounces off the couch, riding his skateboard across the wall. And then grinding off the coffee or the counter, kitchen counter, and they just ground that thing all the way down to the core. Masonite.
Yeah.
On that thing, they ground it all the way down. There was wheel tracks, I think 8 feet up the wall, over the beds. And these guys would just like bounce, and then, and they're like. And some people complained, so the manager showed up, and it was like, uh-oh.
Well, why did those guys, I mean, I have no idea, but why did those guys think they could get away with that kind of stuff back then? I mean, you're pissing people off if you're doing damage to condos. It seems like if you're on someone else's dime, you might want to be a little bit more respectful of the environment that they provided for you. Why do you think those guys were just go so loose or get so loose?
They were just, we're rock stars now. Hey, we got sponsors, we got money, all this stuff, so they were just kind of like letting it hang out. You had that, the Palmer flare, and then Rank would pick up on that, and they would just feed off each other.
Mm-hmm.
What other stupid shit can we get into? Yeah, so.
Yeah.
Tom would just go, yeah, okay, just don't do it again. And
so he would let him get away with it, basically.
Yeah, he paid the bill. He was pissed off a little bit, and then he would just kind of like sit back and just kind of go, well, at least you didn't burn the place down like Alan, so.
Yeah, I mean, those guys, to me as a kid, those guys were like rock stars. Sure. Because they had that attitude, the rock star attitude, too. I don't know if that was intentional or where that came from, but it certainly appealed to a...
Oh, the swagger. The swagger was on full, like all the X Games wins he ever had.
Mm-hmm.
That was like full-on swagger.
Yeah, I mean, it's impressive. Even into his, 30s, maybe into his 40s even, he always had that swagger as long as he competed in snowboarding. Like, he was there to win, and he believed in himself enough that he actually, he almost willed himself to victory a couple times, you know?
Well, there was I think they had a college course for snowboarders on Palmer.
Really?
These guys would just study video of him racing.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would just go out and try to emulate, him. And I go, but that guy never missed the timing coming out of the gate, on border cross or racing, because it all went back to his motocross days, before snowboarding, when he was like BMXing and then motocross and stuff like that.
Yeah, get the whole shot.
And he would just be, 20 leagues ahead of everybody at the finish line. You just sit there and wait. Come on, guys, where are you?
Yeah. I mean, he was an incredible athlete in his prime. Absolutely incredible. Because not only did he have the skill to win, but he had that swagger that you were like, man, I wish I had the confidence he had in life. Yeah, as a kid, when you're unsure of yourself, Yeah,
when he was on the Olympic team, and then he went and ripped his Achilles out.
Heartbreaker.
In Europe, he would have won the gold that year.
Yeah.
He would have been the world, Olympic champion.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that probably until Shaun White came along, he probably had just about the best mind game in the sport. As far as putting your mind into a competitive zone or whatever,
Yeah. Yeah, but even Shaun White, he started doing the swagger, just going, okay, I can just get by on my stock runs and stuff like that. Until, what was that? The first Olympics he was involved in, the year before at X Games in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
I was the head judge, and I just told the judges, just nail everybody if they don't put up or throw up or do what they need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Nail them, So I go deduct points, if they're sketchy or if they're not going high enough, they're not going to get a good score, And it was like Andy Audie won the gold that year.
First back-to-back 10s ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
legit.
Then his other Euro partner, I can't remember what his name was, Martin.
Yanni Korpi. No, is it Yanni Korpi?
Yeah. And then Shaun didn't even podium.
Yeah.
And just I had the Burton coach, the Burton rep,
oh man,
parents, and everybody banging on the door of the judges' shack. What the hell went on? He didn't throw down.
That shit still goes on.
He didn't go as big, and I think Danny Cass had the third place.
Yeah,
he got the bronze in that. He didn't go as big as Danny. Danny was going bigger.
Yeah. And Shaun was a kid then, though, too. He was 14,
he had
15,
the deer in the headlights look, after the contest, what the fuck? I should have won. I go, yeah, but you just went with your stock run. You got to up the ante, man. It's look at Andy Audie and and Danny Cass and all those other guys. every run they would pick it up a notch. You know, you just kept doing the same shit over and over and over again without any amplitude.
Mm-hmm.
Next year, he went into training all summer. Next year, he came back and won every freaking thing on the planet.
Yeah, and it hasn't stopped winning until now.
Including the Olympics,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
You know, he was unbeatable the next year. You know, I go, yeah, that's the mindset I wanted to see. I go, you just needed a reality check. Every once in a while, I'll do that with an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
A reality check.
And that's good because that actually probably set him up for the rest of his career. Like having that disappointment where he was like so sure that he was like the best. But really, it's like people outside of his own brain saw it differently. Right?
Oh, yeah.
And so that was like a piece of humble pie he had to eat to become undeniable in his victories, you know?
Oh, yeah. You know, I've known him since, you know, he was just like a little guy in USASA, you know, traveling around doing the amateur contest tour and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, 8 or 9 or something like that, traveling around with his folks.
Yeah.
You know, and then, because I was with USASA, you know, doing the judging thing and working on new programs for them.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, you know, so I just kind of saw his development, you know, through the years, you know, and they always had him at the Open, you know, as a, you know, forerunner.
Yeah.
You know, because he was such a little ripper, you know, and he could stick a lot of stuff that even the older guys couldn't do.
Yeah, but I think he, like in the very beginning of Shaun White's career, he got a little bit of like cute factor points where it was like, oh, look how tiny he is. He goes like, he was going overhead to himself for sure, right? But it's like, but other guys were going 15 feet out, you know?
Oh, yeah.
So.
You know, he could get a couple feet out on a few of the hits and stuff, but, you know, it's...
Yeah, but he was an undeniable talent even at like 9 or 10. I mean, he was really...
You could see the future, you know, with him. It's just like, wow, if he keeps going, you know...
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of the little guys, like a lot of the little skaters now. I'm like, God, these guys are like 5, 6 years old and they're throwing this stuff down.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're doing drop-ins into the big bowl. You know, and that one little, 5-year-old that can do like a double McTwist.
Yeah.
Twist. You know, you're just like, wow.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're getting to the point now with halfpipe where it's like, what's the next level of progression? Surviving catastrophic injuries. You know? I mean, it's at the point now, if you add an 180 to 1440s, you're going in blind on that last rotation, and you catch that lip, it's not going to be pretty, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Shaun knows how that goes with all the 60 stitches he got that last time.
Yeah, you know what's crazy is like, literally the first time he tried that trick, since he cracked his egg on the lip was like at the Olympics in that third run. He literally went for the 14 for the first time in that third run.
Oh yeah.
Since then, so that's pretty. I mean, to me, that was like it was like almost a superhuman feat that he actually like went for it, like having all that baggage on his shoulders.
He willed his way through that one.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that was like a performance that actually went beyond snowboarding to overcome that in that pressured moment, having failed in Sochi, having, you know, come back from that injury and then pulling it off for the first time trying that trick. It's like, wow, that's like, that to me, like, puts him in a realm of like athlete, right? Athlete, any kind of athlete. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You could compare him really to anyone as far as that moment goes. So I was really impressed by that. And whether, I know Shaun has his detractors or whatever, but I think that moment was undeniable.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So we're now moving forward though, because I know you were at like all of these moments like that actually like that, you know, snowboard history kind of pivoted around. You just mentioned Andy Audie's back-to-back 10s. You know, what about the first Mount Baker Bank Slalom? That's something that like now is like on everyone's bucket list. Like I gotta 85? Go to Baker. Yeah, 85, Mount Baker Bank Slalom that might have been pre-high back even. What was that like?
I didn't make it, but I have the video.
Okay.
You know, of the whole contest. And then I sent them a copy up to Baker so they could show it at their the 30th anniversary or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
Before in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, it was like Tom was there, Terry was there, I think Alan was there. No, Alan wasn't there. Fulton was there, Craig was there.
Cool.
It was like the royalty of snowboarding contest.
Yeah. Was
There,
Bob
back in that
Barcy
day.
was one of the organizers?
Yeah.
Would you say that Bob Barcy is like almost like, I wouldn't say an equivalent, but like the two of you guys were kind of like the elder statesmen at a certain point where you were kind of like helping everyone get involved in the sport, basically.
Oh yeah. You know, Tom kind of like made me his PR guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for the first, actually for all 3 worlds. Because I would run around and do interviews with the newspapers and stuff, and then when Tom would come up, you know, he'd go over there and get interviewed. And, you know, trying to round up the team guys. You know, it's like, okay, we need to do some interviews, get some photos and stuff for the papers and the local, you know, Tahoe magazine and stuff like that comes out around the time of the contest.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, and then sending flyers out to everybody, putting posters up. You know, so I was kind of busy.
Mm-hmm.
Of the month before the contest, you know, trying to get the push going, you know, get the stoke flowing and, you know, and boosting that up.
Yeah. I mean, those events, it's like hard to, you know, obviously you were doing something that really influenced the rest of the sport. Here's another thing that like I want to ask you about is like, by the time I got involved in snowboarding, which was around 86, you know, there was this battle between Burton and Sims, right? And I was from the East Coast. I had a background in like skateboarding, and I have to admit I kind of sided with Sims, right? Just like the punk freestyle.
Yeah, Sims was all about the freestyle. He didn't really care about the racing. That was kind of like a side issue.
Right, but where was like the genesis of that, like kind of like the Sims versus Burton? Where did that start?
In Soda.
At the first Worlds?
They didn't even want to. They didn't even want to do the pipe.
Mm-hmm.
Burton, you know, Jake and Andy and all those other guys were just like, yeah, we don't need the pipe. We're just here to race. And I go, yeah, but if you want to do the overall, you got to do the pipe too.
Uh-huh.
You know, so they finally, you know, the light went on a couple of people, and they started training, you know, in the pipe too.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, there was no pipe outside of Soda Springs in the world to train in.
That was the first one. That was the first one ever.
So it's like you don't really have an advantage. The only advantage you guys had is that you were skating all summer, which is actually a pretty big advantage.
Yeah. You know, and they were so used to the ice, you know, the East Coast ice, you know, syndrome. They came out here, you know, for the half pipe, and there's like 10 feet of pow.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then was it the 84 Sierra Cup? The ruts were so deep around the gates that Palmer would disappear.
Whoa.
It's like he was dropping in a hole, and then he would pull a method coming out around the gate, and he would win.
Yeah.
But he would he was doing like gaps between the gates. He would like gap, air out, and then drop into the slot on the next gate, and then air out, and he was just like pop, 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 all the way down the hill, and he still had the fastest time of the day.
Wow. So was that where it came from? Like the Burton guys would be mad because you guys could freestyle and then you could also race as well?
Oh, yeah.
You know? Because it's like Palmer raced. He did well in racing. Tom won races, you know, back in the day.
Well, you know, it's like Palmer was the junior world champion 3 years in a row. So there, you know, and then the funny thing was that Tom accidentally, at the 85 Worlds, Palmer was 15, and the AMs were supposed to be under 15.
Mm-hmm.
Tom signed him up again for juniors, and he won again. He just clicked everybody's clock on that one, at that contest. You know, so he was like the overall world champion, you know, in the junior set. Mm-hmm. And then it was kind of cool. Nobody really complained. You just kind of went, okay, whatever. So. But they let it slide, you know. It was Tom's mistake, you know, for doing that, you know. And then I know Palmer wanted to go against the big boys.
Yeah.
he was itching for a shot at, you know,
at Terry.
Terry and everybody else. You know.
Terry and Craig, basically, right? Those guys were.
Yeah, Craig, Andy, you know, like most of the Burton team.
Yep, you know, and Andy Coughlin took me under his wing, and the funny thing is, like, you know, Andy was like at that genesis moment of the feud between Burton and Sims, but Andy's the guy who took me under his wing and like made me feel like I was a part of something on the East Coast, right? He was definitely a shepherd of the sheep.
You know one thing about Andy is back when we had the overalls and you had to do everything,
Mm-hmm.
he was an awesome pipe rider.
Really?
Oh, he could fly in that pipe, as big as he was.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just like, wow. I'm like watching him the first time I saw him ride the pipe, you know, after, you know, from like at Breck, when we had to do everything, and you know, he was in the pipe, and I was like, wow.
Huh.
You know, then we went over in '89. We were over in Europe, you know, and he was riding the pipe over there, and I'm like, geez, man.
Huh.
Yeah, Andy, you know,
Yeah,
dog in the bowl.
Yeah, but you know what? Like he and Palmer were always friends. Like as long as I knew them, and it was like, you know, 86. But by 88, I was kind of friends with those guys. But like, those guys always came across as friends to me. Like those guys were buddies, and they would all go partying together or whatever. And it didn't seem like there was like a Burton and Sims animosity, but like the guys who were, you know, at the center of that debate were friends.
We were all still family. You
Yeah.
know, it didn't matter, you know, companies until, you know, you got into the 90s, and then it got kind of ugly.
Yeah, it just became lucrative, you know, for some and not for others.
Yeah, for the first, I'd say 10, 15 years, you know, we were still family. Everybody got together, you know, they mingled fine. They, you know, competed fine. There was no animosity, you know, anybody or company or anything like that. You know, it's like the Tom and Jake finally shook hands.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the war was over, you know, for then. You know, but now that, you know, that Sims is making a comeback, you know, with all the new models and boards and everything else, it's kind of like, yeah, here we go again.
Hey, Beef.
Oh, what's up there, Sully?
I just wanted to tell you about editorial in advertising free media.
We've been talking about this for a while.
Yeah, pretty much since the beginning of the Snowboard Project.
Since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
It's kind of been the foundation of what we've been working off of, right?
Yeah, and so basically we've been trying to keep the advertising and the editorial separated at the Snowboard Project.
Now, advertising as in like advertising sponsorship, right? We throw our little things in the mix.
Yeah, and so basically what we're looking for are our listeners to support us with $2 a month, $5 a month, $10 a month to support advertising-free snowboarding media. And what that means is that our voice will not be affected by brands, by advertising, and we'll just have an independent voice tell you exactly what we think.
Now, it is possible that we could take like some non-endemic sponsorship, or are we talking like in the snowboard realm?
Yeah, I mean, the idea is that we use the support of our listeners to basically fund the Snowboard Project and keep our voice independent and not really influenced by any kind of moneyed interest whatsoever.
So we basically need to rely on our listeners.
Yes.
To go to patreon.com/the Snowboard Project and be willing to buy us a beer.
Yeah.
Or 2 beers, or maybe a case of beer.
Yeah, that would be cool.
That would be awesome. Patreon.com/the
Snowboard Project.
I'm just stoked Terry's got a pro model again. That's pretty cool, you know, because that he was there in the beginning and, you know, really led the way for a lot of people, you know.
Oh, yeah, you know, for everybody.
And what people might not know is that you led the way for him, right? Someone came before Terry, and you're the kind of guy who helped get him involved and helped support his effort in you know, and just being able to ride all the time and you know, just being a snowboarder.
I always had those guys back, you know.
Mm-hmm. So tell me a crazy road trip story. I know everyone road tripped. you got probably a million of them, but tell me like a really crazy story about back in the day.
I'm trying to think. One of the kooky ones was Palmer and Salaz.
Mm-hmm.
Going to the Open.
Mm-hmm.
They ran into Jenna Mayan's mom. Palmer talked her into signing the release for a rental van.
Uh-huh.
And halfway to Stratton, they rolled it.
Yeah, I was at that open.
Yeah, they totaled it out. Jenna's mom got a call from the rental company, wanted to know how she wanted to pay for all the damage. She walked over to Tom, gave him the phone, and go, "Here, you talk to him. It's your guys. I signed for him. They wrecked the thing." I guess there was a bunch of the Euros were in the back of the van, and they were just having a booze party all the way over there, and it just like totaled the whole thing out.
Was anyone hurt? I don't remember.
Yeah, no, not really. A couple bruises, and
yeah,
that was about it. But the van was like, okay, where's the tow truck and the platform? Put them on a truck, take it back,
Yeah.
So Tom wound up buying a rental car.
Man, I wonder if there was like any kind of accounting on how much, like, if he kept track of like how much he paid out in damages over the years.
Thousands.
Well, I mean, just that van must have been thousands.
Yeah. Well, I think the worst one against Tom was Aki when he was in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Him and his brother and a couple other people. They got lost in the backcountry.
Mm-hmm.
It had to be airlifted out.
Mm-hmm. Dave and Ken?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they asked Achenbach, well, I don't have my passport or anything like with me right now. I'm gonna have to go to the council and get a new passport. But he goes, "What's your name?" And he goes, "Tom Sims." Tom gets this bill for like between $5,000 and $6,000 for the rescue.
Yeah.
And he calls me up and he goes, "What the fuck is this?" I look at it and I went, "Oh, Achenbach."
Yeah. It's like, what, the police didn't know he was riding a barfoot?
Yeah, well, whatever.
Yeah, I know. That's funny.
But it was, ever since the 84 Worlds, when Tom denied him his prize money because he owed him money for boards from the shop up in Canada.
Yeah.
And he owed him $800 or $900 for boards, all the boards that he ordered and were shipped to him and stuff like that. And Tom goes he started to give him the cash, and then he goes, "Whoa, oh, wait a minute, that's right, you owe me some money for some boards. I'll just keep that." Okay.
Really? Think of it as a down payment.
The funny part of that was, after the contest, Tom and I went to this Mexican place in Truckee, and we just got hammered. And then we get home, and Tom's like, "Where's my vest?" Because he had that down vest that he always wore.
Yeah.
Back then. Well, he had all the prize money from the event in that vest.
Mm-hmm.
There was like $2,400 or something like that in that vest. So we immediately called the restaurant. There was just the cleaning guys left. "You look for this, like blue down vest, blah 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 blah, with the, it's got the leather shoulders on it."
Yeah.
So it's just like, where? No, not here. No, not here. And I go, "Yeah, that money was wired to Mexico probably within the hour."
Yeah.
So.
Man, like instant karma.
He was just, so pissed.
Yeah.
He was so bummed for, about a week or so,
Yeah.
And then he finally got over it, but, it was just some of the shit you just got to laugh at.
Mm-hmm. So what about Chuck Barfoot back then? What was his role in all of this when you guys were doing the Worlds and all that?
Oh, Chucky was, he was all about making, he was in the garage making boards, all the summer and fall, or spring, summer, and fall for the next season. And then, the heck was it?
Because those guys were both in Santa Barbara, right?
Oh yeah, they were partners for so many years. I was glad I got them back together. And what was it when both Tom and Chuck got inducted into the Legends up in Soda.
Mm-hmm.
We put them in the Hall of Fame, with Norm, who was the guy that owned Donner Ski Ranch that year. And then I actually got a picture of them both with me smiling. They actually started to talk again, which was great. I loved it because they started communicating again, started talking board designs and everything else, and it was just like the old days.
Mm-hmm.
Except that Tom was up in Carpenter, or up in his estate up there on the beach.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Chucky was down in Ventura.
Mm-hmm.
You know, hanging out and doing his board stuff like that, you know. And it's just so they would call back and forth, you know. It's just like every once in a while, it's just like, hey, you talked to Tom lately? Oh, yeah, we just talked this morning. It was great. You know, it's like, okay.
Where did their falling out happen? Was it financial, or was it over designs, or what? Where did that happen?
It was over a couple of things. With Tom wanted to go one way, Chuck wanted to go another way, so that was like they ripped the sheet, and that was it. You know, no more bunk buddies.
Yeah.
You know, some of the early designs that Chuck did, you know, Tom was like, well, I just did this design, blah, 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 like that. And Chuck would be like, that's my design. What are you doing? You looking over my shoulder while I'm drawing this stuff?
Uh-huh.
You know, so they would just get into these hot arguments and stuff like that. You know, no fists or any, you know, no fisticuffs or, you know, brawls or anything like that. We were just like yelling at each other.
Yeah. But it seemed like Tom was kind of connected in the snowboard or the skateboarding world, where he had already had a name for himself, where maybe Chuck was just kind of making a name for himself.
Yeah.
Maybe more so.
Well, they were both, you know, they both knew each other since New Jersey. You know, I just call them the Jersey Bros.
Mm-hmm.
You know, after we got them back together again, I was like, yeah, hey, what's up, South Jersey? You talked to North Jersey yet? You know? Chuck would just laugh and like, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
you know?
that's cool. When was the last time you saw him?
Chuck?
Yeah.
Probably a couple of years ago at the event up in Soda.
Yeah.
Yeah, when he rented a house up on Donner, or in Serene Lakes. They had a house in there. It's like the Barfoot house. All the team guys were there, and that was actually that was the 30th when everybody was here.
Mm-hmm.
We had 30th of the first Worlds in 2013, and Chuck's whole team was here. You know, Fiend was here.
Sweet.
Linkman was here. You know, and then Fiend goes and jumps Wine Rock when there's no powder at the bottom. Gets the knee shots in the face. Comes walking in all bloody, you know, and everything. Like, I go, you didn't. He goes, yeah, I did it. I was like, oh, you ass. You dumbass. I go, there's like hardly any snow to land in, and you just went flying off it. And he goes, yeah. He says, we just piled some snow for a jump, and then just had him slingshot me off. I was like, oh man.
Were you there at that photo shoot where I think Tom took that photo with Terry off Wine Rock?
Oh yeah, flying. I was one of the guys that went off that day.
Really?
We all went off.
Man, that's like one of the. I mean, that's the photo, I guess, that catalyzed in my mind that basically anything is possible on a snowboard.
That was such a huge air, but it was like a flat landing with knees in the chest.
Yeah.
It just went ass over tea kettle for, you know, about 12, 15 feet.
Right.
Like, boop, boop, boop. You know,
You're glad it wasn't a sequence.
There was a lot of pow landing, but it was so flat.
Yeah. That's interesting, though, because it's like, honestly, it's like, for time immemorial, like, snowboarders will launch Wine Rock just to recreate that and then eat their knees. Right?
You just eat their face. You know,
yeah.
Like, you know, I think he had a couple of loose teeth. His nose was bloody. He had bit his lip and a couple other things, you know. So it's like, wow.
Yeah.
I hope it was worth it. And he goes, yeah, that brought back a lot of memories. And I was like, yeah, okay.
Yeah. And then you're like, yeah, did your bales pop?
Yeah, no, actually, he was, you know, he says, yeah, I got stuck it, you know, bounced up and just kept riding the rest of the way down. So we went up and looked at the bomb crater, you know, that he created, and sure as shit, he just wrote it right out.
Nice. That's pretty crazy. So okay, so you were judging for years in snowboarding. So first you started as an instructor, right? You were a PR guy. You worked with Sims for a while. What other jobs have you had in the industry? I know you judged. What else?
Yeah, well, I had the 84 and 85 Worlds. I was the head judge with Bob Klein and what was it, Wendy Gooding. She rode for Tom. So it was like two Sims guys and a Burton guy judging.
Yeah.
We would have these discussions, you know, it was kind of like working out, well, how are we going to judge this now? You know, the pipe and stuff like that. You know, after the first world was judged by ski instructors.
Ooh.
From the lodge.
Mm-hmm.
They had no clue what snowboarding was. You know, they were just like, oh, that's cool. You know, I think it's kind of like how the points got back to where Hargraves won the Worlds that in '83, became the first world champion.
Right.
And then the next 2 years it was Terry, and, you know, and then when they went to Breck, it was Terry again, you know, for 2 more years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then Craig finally wangled the title away from him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but it's just, for like years I would just rag on Craig, you know, it's like, get some air, man, get some amplitude. So we just like do these milk runs, but he was like so tech.
Mm-hmm.
Through his whole run, you know, he'd have all these tricks lined up. It was like Tony Hawk on snow.
Right.
You know, it's just like he had more hits than anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
But he just didn't have the amplitude, but he still won. You know, so I was just, back then I was just the judge. I wasn't the head judge, but I just like made comments and like, what's going on here?
Yeah, you guys would go drink with the competitors after the event.
Oh yeah, you know,
and then they would be like, I deserve to be better.
There was the 10% clause.
Yeah.
That went to the bar.
Yep.
You know, so we just go out and just get slammed, and then, you know, the next morning be like, okay, well, glad the pipe's done.
Yeah.
We're all through with that. But I kind of made a rule when I was the head judge. I go, no drinking until the pipe's over.
Right.
You know.
And it was because you needed a rule like that, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't obvious.
Oh, yeah, I know. Those guys would come in just so hammered and stuff like that. I go, okay, this is a rule. I'm going to make a new rule. You know, you guys don't.
You're so lame, Chantry. Oh, Chantry.
No. They just, you know, I go, and I'll buy the first round.
Okay.
You know, after the pipe's over, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I was making good money from the events and from the sponsors and stuff like that. You know, the guys, the organizers and stuff. You know, it's like the free ride tour and stuff like that. I was making way bank on those.
Nice.
So
Did you do World Cups too? Where you do like judging ISF World Cups and stuff?
Oh yeah. I was traveling around the world from '89 to '90 for like 10 years there.
Yeah.
I was doing the world tour of Japan and stuff until I got banned in Japan.
During the whole Palmer Ted Martin incident?
That was after.
Okay.
This was after. I was the first head judge to be banned from Japan. Because remember the BB guns?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Airsoft ones?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a war at the hotel at the Nippon Open.
Mm-hmm.
And the sponsors got all upset and pissed off and everything else, and they left. Nobody got paid.
Oh.
And then they took us to the hotel and then left us to find our own way to the airport and everything else. They just kind of abandoned us in Tokyo at our hotel. So they go, these are paid for this night and that night, and then you got your flight out. And, you know, so it was like $100 for the bus to the airport. You know, I'm like, yeah, whatever, I'll do that. You know, I had some extra cash with me. You know, I was like, I wound up buying dinner for a few of the guys that, you know, were kind of like tapped out because they didn't get paid.
Yeah.
You know, like, well, we'll get paid. I told the organizer, you are now under injunction. We were not coming back. No more U.S. officials will come to the event.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I go, you boycotting me, I'm boycotting you guys.
Mm-hmm.
So until you pay, you know, what's owed. So a year later, we finally got our pay.
Okay.
Yeah, they did a bank, you know, they wired the money to everybody. So everybody got their money, you know, it's like, okay, injunction off.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I never went back after that. I think it was 80 or 96.
Okay, so snowboarding was pretty well established by that point. I mean, that's 2 years away from the Olympics happening there.
Oh yeah, you know. So, and then Greg Johnson got me involved with the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
And creating the formats and formulas and stuff for that. And then I was kind of upset because I created the double up.
Mm-hmm.
Two judge teams and 2 guys in the pipe, one after the other.
Yep.
And you had to do 2 runs to qualify, and then we had a 3-run final.
Mm-hmm.
Everything, it was like best of in the finals, but the two runs were, you could do best. We decided we're going to do best of in those 2. So whoever,
okay.
And the original deal was we combined both scores.
Yeah, Richards is still a little sore about that at the Olympics, how it wasn't best of, it was combined,
Yeah.
But it's like, hey, that you knew what it was going in, so you can't feel too bad, you know?
So then in the year before the Olympics, when everybody was raising money, so they could go do the qualifiers, the heck were they? In the U.S., I think there was 3 or 4.
Yeah, there was a Mammoth one. That's when I started announcing those events. Was right when the Olympics
that
happened.
One, and then Colorado, and then there was another one, and then I think they used the Open. I think the Open was another qualifier, and then there was there was one more. I'm trying to figure out where the hell that was. Was that at? It was in Colorado somewhere.
Yeah, it might have been Copper. No.
It was Copper. Yeah, Copper had one.
Yeah.
Back then, but then during the negotiations with USASA, the IOC or the USOC, Bill Merle, and then it's just we just call him Dirty Bill.
Mm-hmm.
And then they changed the rules again, saying that's fine, you can do these qualifiers, but you got to go do 2 or 3 events in Europe for FIS points.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So that just we had a signed agreement with them, and at the meeting in Switzerland, I got in Samaranch's face and called him the biggest fucking mafia boss in the world. I just call him, I go, you guys are such dicks, and this is in front of the board.
Yeah, of the FIS.
Yeah, so I was supposed to be the head judge for Nagano.
That didn't work out though.
Until that meeting, and then I got canned, so it's
right.
Greg wound up going over there and helping, it's okay.
Yeah. So what's your opinion of the Olympics today?
Still the same.
Yeah.
It's still a big ripoff.
Yeah.
Now that the skiing is making a rebound,
mm-hmm.
Snowboarding has become the redheaded stepchild of winter sports.
Yeah.
We pulled them out. We pulled the Olympics out. We pulled skiing out.
Well,
and everything else, and then all of a sudden, wait a minute, then now they're like, oh, skiing, that's the thing, blah, 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 blah,
Here's the thing, though. It's what gets the best ratings in America? Snowboarding, right?
Oh, yeah.
And you know what else? It's not only does snowboarding get the best ratings, but NBC pays the most money. Right? And so therefore it's snowboarding kind of isn't going anywhere. And it's partially because of guys like Shaun White, whose story is easy to tell, and they can build the drama up before the games because, it's NBC likes a sure bet, right? You don't want to just have random people all over the place because it's then you can't build up a story around them.
Yeah.
So
they called me from Korea and bought some of my footage from the first pipes.
Mm-hmm.
From Soda and stuff like that, and they were playing them, I guess, at the closing ceremonies.
Really?
This little special thing that they were doing, but it wasn't on TV. It was only for the crowd.
Okay.
They were the only ones that supposedly saw my footage, and was like, well, as long as I get a credit on there somewhere.
Yeah, interesting.
Really care, just use whatever you want.
Well, hopefully they paid you because there's a lot of money going around in the Olympics, so
Oh, I got paid before. The thing was, when in Salt Lake,
mm-hmm.
I got invited to go and hang out in the judges' tower, and get us, credentials and everything else like that. And then they wanted me to bring a bunch of footage so they could put a production together. The Olympic balked at it. The IOC balked at it and said, well, that'll be 4 or 5 years down the road. We need to go through committees and subcommittees and stuff like that and talk about this video thing, blah, blah, blah. Well, they just wanted to show my footage during the breaks in the pipe.
Mm-hmm.
You know, throw some of this stuff. Well, this is the original pipe, the first ever snowboard pipe in the world, blah, 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 like that. And they got denied, and I got denied, so I was just like, whatever, I'm just staying home.
Hey folks, if you're tuning in to us still, please take a minute to go to Patreon.
Wait.
What?
Is there like some question that they wouldn't still be tuning in?
Well, if they're still listening, they can go to patreon.com/the snowboard project.
But you're still staying still.
Still.
Like they might
not
have
have just
even
listened
made
to
it
the
this
first
far.
5 minutes. Yeah, they might not have made it this far. So.
Okay.
But I just want, if you're still listening, okay, if you're listening, go to patreon.com/the snowboard project, and we're going to count on you guys to support an independent voice in snowboarding media. It's how we're going to keep this thing advertising free and have a voice that is not affected by the advertisers.
You know, did you ever have any kind of vision when you first digging that? Let's say like Tom's pushing the walls up, you're digging the thing. Could have you ever imagined that like snowboarding halfpipe would produce millionaires? It would make people famous. It would make, you know, careers. You know, did you have any kind of like premonition or anything like that?
Not till after about 4 or 5 years. You know, then I could see which way the wind was blowing. You know, to bigger and better. You know, it's like Breck when they had that 600, entry overflow. You know, and I go, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
You know, and then they had the pre-qualifier the next year, and then the next year everything got cut back to, no pre-qualifier. It's just, sign up or, once we meet our quota, we're shutting everything off. Mm-hmm. So they got smart with that one, which kind of like was okay. But then up until the freeride tour was great because Grell got me into that. Mm-hmm. He brought me in as the judging director and head judge and kind of like his assistant, running the whole show. And they let me make up the rules. And I go, rule number 1, don't piss me off. Rule number 2, see rule number 1. So we came up with the thing, the tagline, less rules, more fun. Mm-hmm. So it was like, whatever you can get away with, go for it. Unless you're knocking gates down or something like that, or during
pissing off Chantry.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just like, you want to protest? Okay. So we made the protest fee like $100. And
where would those fees go? Beer money?
Oh yeah, that was beer money for the judges.
Okay. I always thought it might have been, but now I know.
Oh, it is. That fully was.
Yeah.
Just like, $50 or whatever. There was a couple of them. I just put it in the pocket and go, okay, I'm buying tonight.
Yep.
Or you're buying. So, but it was kind of hilarious, some of the stuff that we did then.
Yeah.
Because we were at, where were we? Vermont, Northern Vermont what was the resort up north?
Stowe, maybe?
Not Stowe. The other big...
Jay Peak.
No.
There's Killington.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we did the free ride. Whoops. Shit. What did I just drop here? Oh, okay. We're all right. Okay. Just thought I knocked some of my figurines down. Yeah, because we did Killington, we did Aspen. We were the first snowboard group allowed in Aspen. Mm-hmm. And then everybody that went freeriding the day before got arrested because snowboarding wasn't allowed in that section of the mountain. They were all jumping the fences and doing the backside powder.
Yeah.
And all their faces wound up in the paper the next day.
Yeah, but being arrested back then as a snowboarder was almost like a badge of honor.
Oh yeah.
It's like, look, I told you I could be a punk.
That's why they did it, just to to see how far they could get away with.
Yeah.
But
that's
we
funny.
had the that was such a fun event because we got to be so creative, and it was a TV show, and we just and then at Sierra Tahoe when I created the double up format and split the judge panel and stuff like that, and they're going, well, we're running out of daylight during the day, and I go, well, let me think about it. So I just kind of sat there for about 10 minutes, and I went, okay, the light came on, and I was like, okay, there we go. Here's what we're going to do. So I had a meeting with all the riders and all the officials and the TV and stuff like that. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to split the team in half. What you're going to do is you're going to get 2 runs to qualify for the finals. And it's combined scores because I only had 2 judges on each panel. So I had 3 radios and the headset, and I'm trying to run the start. It's like, okay, drop in this one. Okay, 2 hits, drop the next guy in. Okay, this is your guys, this is your guys. And then we would reverse it on the next round.
Mm-hmm. So each rider would get judged by both panels.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So then you could, if you didn't do a really good run on the first one, you could get a really good run on the second run, and you just combine them. And
it was combined, though. It was not best of back then, yeah.
I told the athletes, you guys trust me, right? Okay. And they're like, oh, yeah. I'm like, okay, fine. This is what we're going to do. I trust my judges, and, there's no bias there, because I had Harper and Davis, which were my lead guys, 1 on each team. And then I had 2 local guys from back in Vermont that were judges there. So I go, well, you guys work it out. And I go, it's going to run really fast. So we did 180 people through in no time. I go, the runs were between 20 and 30 seconds each.
Oh, yeah, that's way fast.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's just zip, 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 zip. Well, the pipe wasn't really that long anyway, and it was kind of slow.
Yeah.
For that time of day because it was sunny and it got kind of slushy, and then it started crusting up again.
Okay, so here's a funny question for you. Well, I guess you don't have to answer it if you don't want to. But, you've judged a lot. And even to this day, parents, coaches, they come kind of knocking on the door of the judge's booth, right?
Oh, no.
Who sticks out in your mind as the biggest complainer of all time?
Oh, Jimmy Scott.
Oh,
he was
man.
always after me, but I would always use him in the evenings when I'm shaping the pipe.
Uh-huh.
If there's a problem or something like that, I'd go draft him because I know he would jump in there in a minute with a shovel with me.
Yeah.
And we'd start shaping and stuff like that, and he would round up some of the other boarders. So we'd finally have a whole team in there and stuff like that. But he would just, I'd just go, Jimmy, your problem is you have no amplitude. You're like Craig Kelly, man. You got all these tricks, but you're not boosting them. You're not pushing them up.
Yeah.
And then for a while there, the riding was getting like skateboarding. It was like riding a half pipe on skateboard.
Mm-hmm.
You had every event, you would have the same run. You do the same tricks on the same wall.
Right.
And the snowboarders were getting that way too. So we had a meeting in Europe, and I go, let me blindfold the judges, and you guys ride, and the announcer will call the tricks out, and I will definitely tell you that they will recognize who the rider is.
Really?
Watching them all season, in the U.S., and then the first in Europe, and then we went to, the heck was it, Ischgl? Yeah, we were in Ischgl at the World Championships there, and I just went, hey, this is the deal here. You guys got to learn some new shit, or learn it backwards and forwards, from the middle to the end, or the middle to the beginning, or the middle to the end, or which way ever you want to do it. Mix stuff up. Get us excited.
Right.
I go, the more crazy shit you do and stick, the better your points are going to be, and the more excited we're going to be, to help you win.
Yeah.
Think about what you're doing. Go bigger, do a switch run or whatever. Just mix it up. After that, They did it.
Yeah.
You
Wow.
know, it just kind of cycled. You start getting that stale area and everything else. Which was kind of when Shaun did the X Games thing, and I nailed him for that.
Mm-hmm.
I go, you're just doing your stock stuff that you've done all season, and then you come here and throw the same shit. I go, I have video of you doing this same run,
Oh, man.
pre-event.
I'll tell you what, so I've been announcing these contests for a long time, and I'll save the name to protect the guilty, but there's some girls, if you hear me call the trick while you're still in the flat bottom, it's a little bit of an insult. You know what I mean? Because, I will literally call, if you haven't even started approaching the wall yet, or you're just in the middle of the flat bottom, I'm like, here comes that famous crippler, right? And you're still totally in the flat bottom. It's like, that's way too predictable and boring. You know what I mean? So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they would get like that every once in a while, so I'd have to shake them up. It's like, okay, here's what you need to do. Let's try something like this, Eventually, Jimmy, when he won the Open.
Yep.
That one year, he
96, I think. Maybe.
He went big.
Yeah.
He let it go. I was like, that's what I want to see from you.
Yeah.
That's what I've been ragging you on for, the last few years.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the year that I built the cage on the side.
Yeah, everybody's just like, oh man, that's the end of the U.S. Open. Jimmy Scott won. It's just like that was when they started making all those crazy stickers.
I made all those stickers. I was the one who did that. Oh, you want? Come on, talk shit to me, Mike. Let's hear it. What didn't you like about my stickers? And I'll tell you the story about how they came about, because it actually has a funny story.
I loved them. I think I still got a box of them here too.
Really? Well, I got in a car wreck in my girlfriend at the time's car in Canada. And her father came down on me and was like, you got to pay the deductible. I had no idea how to pay the deductible. And so I had gone to a NASCAR race and came away. Like I actually got, I don't know what we were doing. We were going snowboarding somewhere in the Southeast, but there was a NASCAR race. So we stopped by there. And just the marketing of NASCAR made an impression on me. So I'm like, I'm going to make stickers. Right. And I went and started selling them. And basically I made the deductible back. And I also, by the way, that very first year I made the stickers, I also made T-shirts and sweatshirts. My buddy was in the qualifier, and so he brought back the T-shirt. He didn't qualify, but he brought back the event T-shirt. I scanned the front of it, and then I changed the logos on the back to Budweiser, Trojan Condoms, Mervyn Manufacturing. So I just swapped out all the sponsors for the sponsors I wanted, and then I went and sold those. But then Stratton got wind of it, and they kicked me off the mountain because I had a garbage bag of T-shirts and in my little Ziploc bag of stickers. And so they kicked me off the mountain, and then as I'm running off the mountain, these people chase me down. They're like, how many T-shirts do you have left? I'll buy all of them. And literally, as I'm getting escorted off the mountain, some guy bought 20 T-shirts that I had left. And so I made the deductible back, moral of the story. Great. So there's a little history, my history personally for you. So I got one more question. I'm going to have to interview you some more. I hate to tell you, but man, your history is so rich, and man, I'm learning so much right now about a sport that I've dedicated 30 years to. I'm going to have to interview you again, but I have one more question. We'll end up this interview. I think we're 2 hours deep, maybe even right now. So, but one more question. How did you get the nickname Master Blaster?
Damien gave me that.
Sanders.
Yeah.
Why did he give you that nickname? How did you earn the nickname?
Because the first issue of the new Snowboarder.
Mm-hmm.
The
wetsuit cover?
Hot? Yeah, who's hot? I'm in the back, and who's hot? Me and Jacoby.
Oh, okay.
And then it was they said something about Master Blaster or something like that. So Damien started calling me that. Yeah, Master Blaster.
So that was one of the lines in the write up on you.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna have to. I have those magazines, so I'm gonna have to go back and
look at the premiere issue.
Yeah, I got it right here. I got it on my bookshelf right here. So I got to go back and look at that.
Yeah, okay. Just look at who's hot. There's me, and I think Jacoby's in there, and then one of the gals is in there too. So.
Okay, and then maybe you can settle something for Bridges and I, because we had a debate the other day, and he had one opinion and I had another. who put an end to the board test? I remember the ISM board test. They had the East and West Coast one. And I thought that Snowboarder had a board test too, where in one of them, or I remember it being Snowboarder. Bridges remembers it being ISM. Who had like the different, like the GNU, I don't know, anti-gravity or gyrator or whatever, and the K2 gyrator got like totally different reviews in a magazine, even though they were the same mold with different graphics. Which mag was that?
Oh, you got me on that. I know Transworld did it, and
okay, well, I'll look it up.
No, wait a minute. ISM did those too.
Yeah, but who gave the good review to the K2 and the crappy review to the GNU? Which mag was that? Because I said Snowboarder, Bridges said ISM, and I haven't pulled out both of those mags. I have both those magazines. I just haven't gone through them yet.
I'll have to go out in the archives and sort through.
Nice.
That year.
Yeah, man, I am gonna have to interview you again. You're one of the best interviews I've ever done in my career. Honestly, it is so cool.
Oh, even with my foggy chemo dosed memory right now. So
well, we'll maybe touch on that next time too, because I think life is full of curveballs and whatever. And man, you just have this awesome attitude. This whole interview's been so amazing, and so I can't wait to check in with you again.
Anyway, thanks for the interview. That was great.
Yeah, thank you, no Master Blaster, sir.
Okay, all right, we'll talk to you later then.
Right on. Have a great night.
On behalf of Mark Sullivan and the Beeve, thanks for listening to the Snowboard Project. Remember, ride fast, take chances, dream big, and take action. And for God's sake, don't forget to support advertising-free snowboarding media at patreon.com. The Snowboard Project. The Snowboard Project. The Snowboard Project.